Maybe it goes back.
They're coming back to you.
Watch, they're gonna come back, bro.
Oh, that's real. You're
Five.
Actually?
Money comes and goes. Quiet down.
No, this shit keeps on people.
Make me have Tim Sim 69 move.
You can't have Tim Sims.
How did Luther's challenge the church already shaped modern Christianity? So, some of the challenges was reject the practice of selling indulgences, emphasize salvation by faith, believe in authority of Scripture over traditions, believe every Christian has direct access to God and can have their own interpretations of the Bible. And the impact on modern Christianity was it allowed for a variety of beliefs and practices within Christianity and different interpretations of the Bible. People had the right to practice their religion without the government controlling their beliefs. Increased literacy and education through his Bible translations and shifted focus to personal relationship with God. These are my sources.
That's my favorite science.
Okay, you know there's no presentation without Tim Sim 69 having a question, so you have to at least give him a
Tim
second.
Sims.
You mentioned the slide before we left. So we left in the slide before the one we did. So that's not. No, I'm serious. The one before this slide.
Wasn't this from yesterday?
So yeah, this is actually the slide. So there was a part here where it's talking about they had Martin Luther had his own teaching and what he thought, right? How come that there's so many denominations after when they split up? Is that because of him, or is that just people have changed it and stuff?
Restate that question?
So Martin Luther, after they split, Martin Luther became a bunch of denominations other than Catholicism, and there's like a bunch now. And is that because of him changing it, or is that just happened over time?
So that's a great question. What did he change?
He changed like the rigidity of Catholicism. I guess it's forces of one belief, and they created a difference.
So anybody else, what did Martin Luther actually change?
Taking away the churches and the Pope or churches in control of everything,
Yeah, correct?
and God belongs to the self.
Say that last one again?
God belongs to the self.
Meaning what?
You can have your own personal relationship with God.
Excellent point. Great job, Billy. So can you take what Billy just said and explain why there are so many religions? Can anyone?
Say it again.
Billy, can you repeat what you said? What was the main things that Martin Luther did?
Taking away the Pope's authority in the church and giving people the concept of having God, having your own personal relationship with God.
Do you guys know what that means?
Yeah.
So,
What's the question?
Then why are there so many religions?
Because everybody just
so Louise, what do you think? Why did that lead to the fracturing of Christianity into so many different denominations?
Because there was a part that of the clergy that wanted to control people's relationship with God, so that it split up because there was a group of clergy that wanted to control the people's relationship with God, and then there was another group of the people that felt they didn't want to be controlled.
But that's not really what I asked. I asked why it fractured into so many different denominations.
I don't know.
You don't know? Go ahead.
So like I'll take what Will said, how that you have your own like personal like relationship with God. So like that's why there's so many like religions, like people have like different relationships or viewpoints of like what or who God is, or if they're atheists, and they don't have one at all.
That's correct. Now combine that with the second point that he made.
What was the second?
That people can have their own personal relationship.
No, that was the first point that we just talked about. Okay.
Taking away the power from the Pope, I believe.
It's like people, is it like people like develop, like through their culture and society, they develop different points and like beliefs on God, like just explain the world around them.
Yep, that's true. And go ahead.
So, based on what he said, each denomination is its own school of thought. So, there's so many. It's my question. There's so many because people subscribe to different schools of thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, in today's day and age, anyone can go out there and become a pastor, or a preacher, or a minister. Okay? I don't know, I mean, some of you guys, does anyone here, and you don't have to say you don't want to, does anyone here belong to a church where it's a one-off church, it's the only one, and you're there because of that pastor, or minister, or reverend? Does anyone belong to a church like that? So it's pretty common in a variety of the different Protestant faiths, okay? There's no hierarchy. So the reason that Billy's second point about the Pope not having authority is because no one has authority. Anyone can go out there and start their own religion. Now, in terms of schools of thought, as Tim's pointing out here, is that if you start up your own church, you generally fall under a particular denomination based upon your interpretation of the Bible. Okay? It gets technical at this point, right? Like, what do you believe in the Holy Trinity? You know, what do you believe in, the Eucharist? What do you believe in certain other aspects of how we interpret faith? Okay? And depending upon your answer there, you will fall in under Pentecostal, under Baptist, under, Lutheran, under whatever, okay? But in most of these, there's very little that prevents you from opening up a church and saying that you're a Baptist church, okay? Now, the Baptists have formed a degree of a hierarchy so that you belong and you're a member and whatever have you, but like the Pentecostal churches, like anybody could go open one up, and in a lot of the Protestant faiths, or a lot of the Protestant churches, you are following a specific minister. You subscribe to what that minister, reverend, whatever you want to call them, whatever it is in that particular denomination, what their ideology is. And so you will often see if a minister dies or leaves or moves, people at that church then might go out and minister shout.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who have done this. Like, they lost their minister, the person who that they were going to hear every Sunday. They lost them, and they don't know if they like the new one yet. And so they'll go out and they'll go hit a bunch of different ones in the surrounding area to decide which one's for them. Okay? Whereas in Catholicism, you don't church shop. Either you're a Catholic or you're not a Catholic. You might priest shop because you might like to listen to one priest better, but you don't church shop. You're always a Catholic, right? So that's the difference between them. And so the reason that we have so many denominations out there after this particular split comes back to the concept that if any of us can become learned in religion, any of us can then become a minister and open up our own church and espouse our philosophy on religion, our views on religion, and if people want to come hear us, they come hear us. Just how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? So, what Luther and Calvin actually accomplish here through the Reformation ends up having a profound effect on religion and religion in everyone's life. And we're going to talk more about it in, I don't know, 2-ish weeks or so, or a week and a half, maybe a week. I don't know, I'll figure that part out. Okay? So it has a really, really major impact on religion's role in society. At this point in time, religion controls everything. It cannot be understated. So, you know, when we looked at the Islamic empires, right, Islam never was separated from political or military rule. They were all one and the same back then. So as Islam spread, I mean, as the caliphate spread militarily, economically, politically, so too did Islam. The Catholic Church wasn't set up that way. Okay, the Catholic Church was set up differently. But what the Catholic Church initiated was Charlemagne, and then continued from there on out, this Holy Roman Empire. It allowed the Catholic Church to also control every aspect of society. So from the moment that you woke up in the morning, okay, your life was dictated to you based upon what the church in your town did. It would have an impact on your jobs, it would have an impact on the day, like you might be at church multiple times a day, you know, doing prayers or whatever have you. Social events would have all been determined by the church. Okay? I mean, the church had, you know, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, I'm just saying that the church's role was just so influential and so dominant that if you lived in medieval Europe, your day was determined by your local church. And so by the time that Martin Luther comes around, what has happened is they have gotten to the point where they are actually sort of running the Catholic Church like you'd run a feudal kingdom. They're selling offices, right? You want to become a low-level priest, you could buy your way in. You could even buy your way into higher level positions. People bought their way into being a cardinal, okay? Which, you know, eventually appoints the popes. 2 of the popes, back during this time period, actually come from the wealthiest family in Europe. Yeah, the Medicis. Now, did they buy their way in? I don't know. I haven't studied that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But, I don't know, what's the probability that you get 2 people from the same family within 100 years? I don't know. It just seems pretty coincidental to me. But one of those popes actually played a major role in spurring forward business. So we'll talk about that also separately. So anyways, so it's right around this time period, okay, that the church reaches the peak of its influence. And from here on out, it's a downward trend. And we end up with this word, secularism. Secular society, okay? And so, with each passing year, from the Reformation until today, the church's role in determining what you do in your daily life becomes less and less and less and less. To the point now where, for the majority of us, okay, for the majority of us who are religious, we probably go to church once a week. We go on Sunday and that might be it. Many of us go less. There are some people who do more and are more involved with the church. And so I'm not saying that like, oh, we're not counting them, but I'm saying that for the majority of people out there, right? If you're a practicing, Christian, you probably go once a week. Does it determine anything else in your life? Not really, not that much, okay? We're not really doing social events anymore through our church. Now, yeah, like, some of you guys might do youth groups, some of you might do retreats, some of you might do some other stuff. There are other roles. The church has attempted to try and find new ways to connect with people, but those are more still the exception than they are the norm out there. And then you get to people who, you know, are Christian culturally, or Christian by birth, but don't go to church at all. right? And that describes a lot of Europe. I mean, you know, you go to a country like Spain, Spain's like, I don't know, 90-some-odd% Catholic. In how many of them go to church? Not that many. Not that many. I mean, it's still a substantial number, right? But it's not like it was. So we're going to talk a lot more about what role this has, and you know, whether it's good or bad is really open to your own personal beliefs. You'll hear this come up all the time. You know, people in urban areas are too liberal. They don't fear God. They don't go to church, right? Like you hear this from, you know, people in the Midwest. You know, whenever a natural disaster happens in the East Coast, it's because, you know, the people on the East Coast are a bunch of heathens that don't believe in God. Now, mind you, every tornado that hits happens in Oklahoma. We won't talk about that, okay? But anyways, so like this language and this debate between what is the role of God in our lives still comes up every single day, right? You got conservatives out there who want to put prayer back in school. They want to put their prayer back in school. And they haven't yet acknowledged that their prayer actually might vary. So, I think, I don't know if I gave this class or not, but like, Florida has at this point, you know, attempted multiple times to put prayer back in the school.
Yeah.
And the first people who volunteer are Satanists. Satanism's a recognized religion.
Yeah.
So the first people who raise their hand and say, yes, we will happily provide religious service in school. That's the side of the thing. As I said, you know, we don't draw on tables. We can erase all that. Okay? You know, you'll never get bored, but if you ever do, you Google it. It's not what you think it is. No, it's not like devil worshiping or anything else. They have they have a much more sophisticated view on the world. Like it's much more intellectual and smart. I'm not saying that like I agree with it. What I'm saying is that, you know, you hear the word Satanist and you're like, oh my God, it's a devil worshiper. It's not really that. Same thing as like when you hear like people who call themselves witches.
Yeah.
Right? Not like, you know, it's not like hocus pocus and we're doing potions and shit like that.
What is it about?
Like I said, I'd have to Google it to do it proper. I can give you general thoughts on it, but like I wouldn't sum it up correctly because I'm just not familiar with it. They have an entire view of the world. Like I said, it goes, I mean, it's not a simple explanation. Alright, anyways, good job. Last slides. Did you honestly think you'd get 35 to 8 minutes, or you just got excited and kept going?
I didn't even know it was 8 minutes.
Nah, he just got break when he was doing just like
What?
Yeah. I mean, like Martin Luther has that effect on people, you know? No.
He took what? How long
half
did
the
he
class-
take?
But if you want to run the class, like I know
24 hours.
like, you know.
Wait, William Johnson went already?
Angel.
What, how many times is it? Is it more than 30?
20-ish.
Oh, it's probably like 5 to 10.
Alright. So we know who goes next week?
Yes.
You forgot Luis. You forgot Luis.
You want fed. You want fed.
Did it?
Yo, y'all some people fed, bro.
Oh, you didn't go?
Y'all some people fed, bro.
High
almost forgot he didn't even
inside the arc scorer, bro.
I have a two-way inside out.
Our favorite inside the arc scorer, bro.
That's not squeezing you. Box.
What are you trying to say?
Fat jokes? I'll kick your ass in Block 1. Nobody will even know you're here by the time Block 4 comes around. Fucking bald-headed egg shit motherfucker.
Alright, so I'm gonna be presenting the Council of Trent.
No slides?
Come on, bro.
Hold on now.
Whoa, next story.
Alright, real quick, as an introduction, it was like a gathering of Catholic leaders. It was first assembled by Pope Paul III, and it started in 1543. It lasted 20 years, and it was discontinued for a couple of years in between, and it was convened by 3 different popes. It was mainly begun in response to the Protestant Reformation, and its purpose was to try to reaffirm the authority of the church because it has begun to lose control because of the Protestant Reformation.
They always.
Oh, really,
So
bro.
serious. It goes through. So in 20 years, there are 3 different popes.
Yeah.
Is that like a normal thing, or is it like just that many times?
Sounds like a good topic that you could research and present back to us tomorrow. What was the average tenure of popes during the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries?
The other served for the last 2 years.
You'll have an answer for us tomorrow? Adrian will happily help you. He'll lend you some fingers so you can do averages.
Better say something.
So Andrew already pretty much went through what the Protestant Reformation was, but this is what the Council of Trent was made to basically counter. Originally, it was composed of 2 groups of people, the Lutherans and the Catholics. As the council met, the Lutherans or the Protestants, they wouldn't really have a say in the council, so the Catholics just took over, and yeah, it was basically, it turned from an open discussion into something that the Catholic. You don't want to copyright it. It turned into something that the Catholic. Oh shit.
It helps to not sit on the keyboard.
I need to find a way to like relax.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to be presenting. You can relax when you're done.
Don't park it on the keyboard.
Alright,
I like how everybody just keep copying slightly.
But it was one of the most effective attempts to reunify the church because other attempts that were made by the popes were not successful. You done? So it was made of 3 sessions that spanned across the 20 years. These 3 sessions, it consisted of 25 meetings, so it wasn't too many, but so during the first session, they focused on addressing the criticisms of the church, ones like Martin Luther's 45 Thesis, 95 Thesis, which Andrew already went through. But the main thing they established during the first session was that the church's teachings would guide somebody's spirit to heaven, and they pretty much opposed what the Protestant people claimed about the church, which was that the Catholic teachings would guide somebody to hell. So the Council of Trent basically established the opposite. They said that the Protestant teachings would guide someone to hell, while the Catholic Church's teachings would guide somebody to heaven. So the second session actually is when the next, was during the service of the next Pope, Pope Pius III. And it addressed Protestant claims about the Eucharist. One of them was that God wasn't present during the consecration of the Eucharist, which happens during Mass. As a Catholic, obviously, I believe that he is present during the consecration. But the Protestants at this time claimed that he wasn't. And the third session, we have another new Pope, Pope Pius IV. This third session would address the religious leaders that were treated poorly because of the effects of the Protestant Reformation, and also in the third session, they rejected some Protestant claims that said that saints shouldn't be venerated or worshipped, and they also condemned some Protestant claims that we shouldn't use music during church service, which is a big part of church service, actually. And just real quick, other things they created to prevent the spread of the Protestant ideas were things like the Index de Borum, which is today it's been suspended, but back then they had made it. What is it? It's just it's a compilation of what is the index? Just look it up, bro. It's a compilation of things that they had like come up with during the council to defend the Catholic side.
Well, look at the line. Show it back a page.
Yeah, Luis, I'll just go back.
I read that and it says prohibited books.
It's a Latin. It's a Latin.
Don't get me wrong.
I was gonna say something, I was trying to be Timothy.
Index of prohibited books. The last slide. Alright, so the decisions of the Council of Trent help prevent the spread of Protestant thought and opinion. Obviously, they never truly stopped it because there was always people that would side with the Protestants. Like I said before, it was originally created to be an open discussion, but the Protestants would eventually stop attending the Council of Trent, so it became more a Catholic meeting. And the council established the Catholics as the main authority of the church. I pretty much already said all this. Their decrees and what they came up with, they still influence the practices that we know today that exist in the Catholic Church. And that's it.
Let's give him 5 big booms and keep it pushing.
Get some justice in here.
Alright, hold on, wait. Just like some, out of like curiosity, not just like a factual question. You said during like each 3 sessions, was there like a different pope or is that just like one person? That's just curiosity.
Say that again, like you said during each session.
You said there were 3 sessions.
Yeah.
For each one, was there a different pope ruling at the time or no?
Every session had a different pope.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to. But yeah, that's it.
Alright, any other questions?
Tim Sim 69.
Sim
69.
It's not really a presentation, Simpson 69 without a comment.
I asked 2 questions already.
But you gotta ask them at the
You
end.
have to have
I
some
have
round.
who knows my question? I have a question to ask.
You always ask one after.
He always does.
You're always confused.
Just make some shit up, bro.
Hey yo.
Just be
Do what
like,
Andrew does every day.
Oh.
He said what?
Hey, he likes the last
Adrian
one.
does every day.
See, I knew there was one, bro.
He's looking for.
I look at that.
He doesn't have enough.
Bro's looking for questions.
Y'all told me so.
Go back.
That's the council.
When was that picture taken?
Where is this image from?
What was that picture taken?
How are they supposed to question?
Question or is this his question?
He said
What
name
name? What position was Pope Pius
XIV
conceived in?
How were the clergy poorly treated? Like, what was happening that they were poorly treated? Does that
They're
make
poorly
sense?
treated because of people's perception of them after the Protestant Reformation. Because obviously, Martin Luther's works, they changed the people's perceptions of the Catholic Church, so the leaders would be treated poorly as a result.
That was a made-up question.
How did Martin Luther change their perspectives of the church?
Oh, this is not Andrew's
with his
presentation,
own
bro.
ideas.
With his dream, I don't know.
We're not listening to Andrew's
With his
presentation.
speech, bro.
That was Andrew's entire career. They went against the Catholic Church's teachings, like Andrew said. That's why.
Because the church was corrupt at the
That's
time.
why.
Bro,
Alright, so, when you gotta remember, Martin Luther actually was not only Catholic, but he was a priest.
Remember?
Okay? He, what, yeah, but what, the monastic order of Augustinians or something? I think he was an Augustinian monk, okay? And when he first posted his 95 Theses, at least as far as what has been reported was, he wasn't trying to leave the church. He was trying to get the church to listen to
In
him,
order.
okay? So like, I mean, he was trying to change things from within, but nobody was listening. And the church's initial response to Martin Luther was, they had him declared an outlaw via the Holy Roman Emperor, and they threatened to excommunicate him. Okay?
Shut up, Martin Luther King. You have a dream. It's back in
Turn the
Now,
other cheek.
while this was happening, okay, his ideas and John Calvin's ideas were spreading across Europe. Any idea how?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The printing press.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is exactly when the printing press came out. So not only were their ideas being rapidly spread across Europe, but they were being done so in multiple languages. So the impact of multiple languages means that these ideas are accessible to the non-educated. Because by this point in time, only the educated probably still spoke Latin. Okay? So by putting it out there in French and German and Spanish and Portuguese and Italian and English, all of a sudden you're hitting this mass market. Okay? And so initially the church had sort of hoped to ignore these and that they'd go away. And by the time the 40s came about, they realized that they were wrong. And they had to do something about it. So they started off by trying to ignore Luther, threatening to excommunicate him, things along those lines. And then they realized that they eventually had to address it. And part of the reason it took so many years was that it takes a really long time to get people to attend a conference.
Who does?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to bring people, say, from the Netherlands down to Rome, or not Rome, it was actually northern Italy, but it takes a couple months.
Don't say that's not.
You know?
It's not like they can fly.
It's not like they can fly, right? They're using their Chevrolets to make their way down there.
Legs.
Okay? So, anyways, by the end of this, the church realized that they had a big problem, and that they had lost, right? Because what ends up happening is Martin Luther gets a bunch of followers. It actually becomes a denomination called Lutheranism, and so does Calvin, and it becomes Calvinism. Calvinism's still huge, and so is Lutheranism throughout Europe. They're both, have very large followings. They're not as common over here in the U.S., but they are over there. And within the 20, 30 years after Martin Luther posts his 95 Theses, it is abundantly clear that this schism has occurred. Okay?
So after this, the schism we were talking about and how Luis described, them having all these sessions and not debates per se, but these, I guess, council meetings, they're both still massive.
What, Lutheranism and Calvinism?
Yeah.
Not massive, but enough to have staying power. Okay? So enough that they weren't going away. Now there's another incident that really puts the nail in the coffin on all this, and I don't remember if anybody has it. Yes, Elijah. We'll have it next week.
Oh, Henry VIII.
Okay?
Henry.
So, there is a separate Reformation that occurs. And it's referred to as the English Reformation. Okay? The English Reformation really was not about religion. It was about Henry VIII getting laid.
I was gonna say like 8 wives, right? 8 wives, right?
No, what actually happened was Henry VIII wanted an heir. And his wives were unable to give him a male heir.
I was gonna say like
So he just changed
He had daughters, but unable to give him a male heir. Now, does anybody know what the irony of that is?
very.
Probably his
Can't pass down the last name.
No, what's the irony though?
He probably want to hit him on them.
That's correct.
I was gonna say that's.
Men determine the gender of a baby.
It was his fault.
Yes.
Yes.
Whether a newborn is male or female comes from the sperm. The DNA, the marker for it comes from the sperm, not from the egg. So when you pop out all girls, it's because of you.
Because you're a bitch.
Yeah,
99% bitch.
Random genetic, whatever have you.
It's like a game of dice, and you roll like he's a bitch.
Oh, Tim Sim 69
Like,
next
it was
week.
like, realize, nigga.
We all gotta ask one question.
And it was just like,
Just can't roll.
that bitch.
It says the Tim Sim 69 presentation.
I haven't told him all my presentation.
Yeah.
Tim Sim 69.
Like, what did you gain from white now?
See, I'm not gonna feel this back when some other nigga right here.
You're obedient.
Wow. So you guys are like fight right now?
Huh?
Just fight him right now. Go to Higgins' class, get the boxing gloves, and just fight right now.
You guys need to do what you're told too.
Yeah.
He's got gloves.
Huh?
He's got gloves.
Alright,
The what?
so anyway,
Yeah. I know.
what ends up happening, and Elijah will tell us bits and pieces about it, Henry VIII wants to have a male heir, doesn't have it, so he essentially keeps killing off his wives.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Catholic Church does not allow divorce.
Yeah, so he
So
just.
he just,
Yeah, he just
kills all of his wives.
He just knocks them off, like literally.
Doesn't he divorce the person?
No.
He tries to, but the church will not allow him to.
Do remember what time.
Divorce was illegal. Even today, you technically cannot get divorced if you're a good Catholic. Okay? In fact, if you truly are like a conservative Catholic, you are not allowed to receive Eucharist if you get divorced. Now, the Catholics have a workaround. Okay? It's called annulment. So, if you want to get divorced and get remarried in the church, you have to have your first marriage annulled. Now, there are legit grounds for annulment. For example, so the way that they originally developed annulment was if you found out something that would have made you change your mind about marrying the person, and you had not consummated the marriage, you can apply to get annulled. Meaning that if you, normally what you did is you tried to knock her up the first night you got married, right? There's entire traditions, like sometimes you see this in the movie where they carry the bride and groom to the marriage room.
To the marriage, yeah.
Like literally, the whole purpose was to get them knocked up the first night.
Yeah.
Because you want an heir. Okay? So like that tradition and some of those concepts still exist. When we, sit there and decorate like the just married car and you make the jokes after people get married, it goes literally back 1,000 years. Okay? So anyways, you can get it annulled by having a priest declare that the marriage never actually happened. Yeah. Now, the priest will want to know why the marriage should never have happened. It's a long process. And normally to have gotten it annulled, you probably had to go through marriage counseling within the church prior to having it annulled. But you can get your marriages annulled. Okay? And that concept still exists today. If you get divorced and don't get your marriage annulled, you can't get remarried in the church. And technically, you're not supposed to really receive communion or do other stuff.
So what did you do with the first one you had?
Who, Henry or? Henry killed most of his,
He
his
killed-
first 5 wives.
The fourth one didn't die.
Okay?
What if your wife dies?
And then it's all fair game.
Like a last.
Hence why they accidentally cut him in her. They had unfortunate accidents, slip and
Oh,
falls.
unfortunate
The
accident.
last one, the last
Yeah.
one, the last one you had.
Very unfortunate.
Yes.
Because he died first. He died
So there is actually a Broadway play about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? Like right now, there's a Broadway play.
Can we go see
Yeah.
it?
So you get permission to
Class
join
trip?
it, I'll happily take you all.
This is
But so, to make this happen, Henry basically says, well, you know what, I'm gonna jump on this Reformation train, because the church is evil and corrupt, and I'm just gonna declare my own religion. Okay? Which is the exact same thing as Catholicism, but I'm the head of the church, King Henry, not the Pope. And that is what became the Church of England. It still exists today. Followers are called Anglicans. Okay? There have been multiple attempts over the years to remerge Catholicism and Anglicans. Because even today, the practice of the faith and their theological interpretations are quite similar. So, like, even under Pope Benedict, I think, was the last ones where they had talked about remerging the two faiths. So it does come up. But what essentially becomes the nail in the coffin is that England goes through a little back and forth after Henry VIII. One of his daughters is actually Catholic, and then she gets overthrown, and Queen Elizabeth I comes into power. And while this is all happening, she defeats the Spanish Armada. And Spain at the time was the Holy Roman Emperor. Okay? And so this makes it so that England is now the top dog politically and economically, and no one can really tell them that they can't have their own religion. And so it stays.
Fox.
Yes.
It's like the weirdest question ever, but he just.
I highly doubt that coming from you.
Does the Pope run Vatican City?
Does the Pope what?
Run Vatican City, or do they have its own president?
No, the Pope technically is the head of Vatican City.
Do they have any airports or?
Priests.
Actually.
I mean, walking around Vatican City would be like walking around the entire Benedict's property on the outside.
Oh, that's more?
It's pretty small. It's a little bigger, but, you know. I mean, it would take you, maybe walking around twice. It would take you like 30-ish minutes or so to walk around the entire Vatican City.
People live in that. I
Yeah.
got lots
Lots of
of
people.
lots of people living in that. Yeah. It's small.
What?
It's like two Benedict, and people live here.
I mean, you have to look up the numbers there, but I mean, it's, you know.
I can't do that leaves.
I mean, like, you know, they have a full-time, you know, researchers, things like that. Seminarians go there to study, like, I mean, it's all priests, but, and maybe some support help, but, yeah. Anybody know who provides protection for the Pope?
Oh, actually, it's an old team.
What?
He's guards.
Yeah, but who are the guards?
I forget the names.
Deacons?
They are a special group of Swiss guards. Swiss.
Like Switzerland?
Yeah, like Switzerland. Yes.
Switzerland?
Yeah. And they've been protecting the Pope since around the 1500s. I forget when it first started.
Why Switzerland?
I don't remember the history of it. I'd have to look it up.
It says that there are currently 754 people living there.
There you go.
But it also says that regular people are not allowed to live there.
Right. I think that I don't know how this works. So they own, right on the outside of Vatican City, there's a whole bunch of apartment buildings and stuff that they own as well. And so if, for example, I mean, there's a real hush-hush scandal that went on where essentially one of the people who worked there, their like 10 or 11 or 12-year-old girl disappeared. Yeah. It's one of these mad conspiracy theories where like they claim the Vatican bought off the Italian police and everything else because they think that it was somebody high up in the Vatican who sexually abused her and then killed her and got rid of the body. There's like movies and like podcasts done about this thing. I have no idea what any of the facts are, the validity of it, but it was a more recent scandal that had come up that people had talked about. My point though is that there are people who work there who have kids, and I think that they have to live outside, like in that area, like right outside.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like if the abbot went over, I don't even know if the abbot gets to stay in Vatican City or not, or if he stays in one of these apartments outside. There's a whole set of rules to it, and it's beyond me.
That's a part.
So,
No hotels?
no, it's not, they're not hotel, like they're apartments.
They got food there? They got food there?
They have something, I mean, there's a lot of people who live there that they feed. But again, like,
I don't think
I
that's McDonald's or nothing like that.
I think that, the buildings are run individually, so like each one would have their own staff, essentially. But again, couldn't tell you. I mean, the only thing I know, like I've been inside of it, and the coolest part about it was like I told you, was that underneath the Vatican. Did I tell you the story?
It's like
It's a
like a
cemetery.
big cave,
Oh,
right?
cemetery.
It's a pagan cemetery underneath the Vatican.
You still go or not? You can't go.
You can, it's just really hard to get tickets. It's very, very limited, and you have to do it in advance. You can't show up and do it. You have to apply in advance to get it.
You went in,
Do it.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, he was in
You
the.
wanna do it?
I was there in 2007, maybe?
apparently he was in the Vatican.
The Pope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, did we answer the question about who guards the book?
What was the history of it? When did it start?
I said who guards the book, like the Swiss Army knights or no?
When did it start?
We have basketball.
Isn't that next Wednesday?
What was the question?
You got 45-minute classes.
Why?
Sir Shane Bell
Yeah, I knew it was right around there.
Definitely
Why
the
was it?
It definitely is. So I believe in science, not God. It definitely says it.
The calculus theory.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Fox. Fox, you know how you said you could do like an extra presentation for extra credit? Are we still doing that?
Alright, so back to the Chinese.
Wait.
Yo. You have your notebook.
Wait, no.
You got 5 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Alright, so back to the Chinese, okay? I believe that we got through the Tong and the Song. Okay? Golden Age of China, we talked about some of their inventions and what have you. Okay? Gunpowder was invented during the Tong, accidentally by an alchemist. Okay? Alchemist was looking for an elixir of immortality.
Did we talk about inventions?
Same idea. Okay? We're not talking about what? Speak up.
Did we talk about inventions already?
I believe we did, didn't we?
No, we didn't.
No? Alright, I'll back up one.
He was looking for a serum of immortality.
Kind of at the first.
Is it
He's
true
trying
that
to.
China
He's looking
had
for
it?
immortality to alchemist.
I haven't heard that
There's
one.
multiple accounts of a man sitting in a chair. Some
He was looking
What, on the
for
moon?
immortality when
No,
he accidentally
but a
discovered
man
gunpowder.
sitting on a chair, some rockets dropped to it.
I would highly doubt that. Did you hear about the guy who was intent on proving that the earth is flat?
Kyrie Irving?
And he sat himself on a chair and attached himself to rockets?
Yeah.
He is no more.
He
He died.
He attached a
No,
rocket to his chair.
no. What when is it recently?
Yeah, this is like, I don't know, a couple years ago.
Do you have a video?
Anyone ever get bored and look up things? Anyone know what a Darwin Award is?
Yes.
What else?
Of course, Demon.
Anybody else know what the Darwin Awards are?
What?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's what?
Yeah, it's like it's in the order like when you do like the most dumbest
Oh,
thing.
Dar-
Hey,
oh,
hold on. Guys, hold on. Tim Sim 69.
Don't you get the award when you do something like really stupid? Like
And so it goes beyond that. So first of all, who's Darwin?
Charles Darwin.
Charles Darwin, and what was his invention? Evolution. Evolution. Not fuck. Evolution. No, I'm telling you the answer.
It's not fuck. Can you see who won the latest one?
it's really satisfying, but it leaves like a
Stressed out something.
Anyway, so what we were saying,
this guy.
Darwin invents evolution, right? Doesn't invent it. He calls it evolution. Evolution is the idea of survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Okay? I have no doubt. So survival of the fittest, right? Which is the idea that only the strongest survive. And over time, okay, we evolve because of this thing called natural selection, whereby, like, you know, you end up with two types of birds in this world. One's got a long beak, one's got a short beak, right?
Yeah.
Okay? All of a sudden, there's a massive overpopulation. So who's going to survive? As the flowers die off, and the only way to get pollen out is through a long beak. Well, then the short beak ones die off. That's, I mean, a very simplistic explanation of how natural selection and evolution would work. So the Darwin Awards were like these joke awards. They're not really real. And it's somebody who manages to die in such a stupid way that they don't deserve to evolve or to live.
What the fuck?
That's what the awards are. They award them every year.
Can we see who won the latest one?
Okay? Yeah, I think they do them every year. I don't know.
Who won 2024?
For a while they were doing them every year. But it's literally for people who manage to die in the most
Can we check
ridiculous
tomorrow's
ways.
lunch?
Do you know any,
I've never met somebody who's that way.
Wait, can we see who won the latest one?
If we get through the material, I'll show you one.
How much material we gotta get through?
So, anyways, we got gunpowder. Okay, you guys are trying to tell me that I didn't go through the respective technologies.
Oh, question for Luke.
So when we talked about the Tang Dynasty,
Oh my god.
okay, we had talked about woodblock printing.
No.
No? Wow. All right. So you guys are actually behind for once. So then you have to put your hand down when we get moving. Okay. So.
Please don't ask questions.
Okay. Golden Age of China is made up of two dynasties, the Tang and the Song. There's a bit of time period in between the two, about 53 years, where shit fell apart, and it took a little while before a new warlord sort of came in and consolidated power and became the next emperor. Okay? If you look and you notice here, the Tangs, okay? I asked you to compare things across time. They're starting off at 618. Okay? Muhammad does the Hijra in 622. So you want to know what's happening at the same time? This is what's happening. They last until 1279. When do the Abbasids Empire end? Oh no.
Ended 1258.
What?
1258 CE.
1258.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when they get sacked by
The Mongols.
Mongols. Guess who sacks the Song? The Mongols.
Oh shit.
Okay? So when you look at this time period here for China, okay, it roughly matches up with at least the first three caliphates that we studied in Islam. Okay? And they both end the exact same way, which is the Mongols.
They get sacked by the Mongols.
Okay? We're not going to go through aspects of poetry and art. One of the main things here was I talked about the growth of Confucianism. Okay? Buddhism did not necessarily have the same moral code of laws in it as a religion as does, say, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In Christianity, we know about the Ten Commandments. Okay? If you take religion out of the Ten Commandments and look at it, right, what does it say? thou shalt not kill, shall not steal, don't knock off your neighbor's wife, right? Like,
Debatable.
relatively practical piece of advice if you have to live next to these people, right? To prevent bloodshed and to prevent other stuff, okay? Buddhism was a bit more, has aspects of how to live a good life, but it also has a lot more on how to achieve nirvana and hit that sort of next status of consciousness. And so it didn't entirely have that moral code built into it. The Chinese found Confucianism a really good way to fill that hole. Because Confucianism is all about how you are supposed to respect your older brother is supposed to respect your parents are supposed to respect their rulers, all the way up to the emperor. Okay? And then the emperor's just supposed to be good and kind and nice and look out for his subjects. Okay? And so the Tang emperors actually reintroduced and promoted the studying of Confucianism because it was pretty damn useful for them. Okay? And then eventually they also introduce, again, this concept of a heavenly mandate, okay, a mandate from heaven, and begin referring to the emperor as the son of heaven. Yeah. Because what does every emperor want?
An heir.
No, they want what they want. They want those things too, but they want to be divinely chosen, right? They don't want to just sit there and say, I got it because I was the strongest. Because if they're not the strongest, then somebody else can take it. They want to sit there and say, God chose me to be emperor.
Son of God, right?
They want legitimacy. So during the Tangs, they also developed, first off, woodblock printing, okay? So, as if you recall, first we start off with a piece of stone, and you gotta hand chisel that shit, okay? The invention of paper, something really simple, the invention of paper allows us a cheaper, quicker, and disposable way of writing stuff down. But now, if you wanted to write stuff down, you had to have a calligrapher, a person who had really good handwriting. So preserving a book from back in this time was really hard and really expensive. Coming back now to the House of Wisdom, and why the House of Wisdom was so important. It took a lot of time and money and care to hold on to knowledge and hold on to books. The House of Wisdom went out there and got all these books and saved them, okay? But the woodblock print, okay, allows us to very simply print multiple copies of things using, you know, in their case they would have used characters, but in our case we would have like an alphabet. And you'd stamp the piece of wood, and you'd stamp the piece of paper. And you could write out that way, okay? Gunpowder. We talked about how they accidentally discovered gunpowder, an alchemist was fucking around and he came up with it. The Tangs really didn't use it for much other than for fireworks, okay? Lastly, they really built up the Silk Road, okay? And they made huge agricultural advancements, okay? If we look at a map of China, there we are, okay? This is where the western part, they didn't really control all that much. They controlled this area here. And it's split up between the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, okay? Any society that's dependent upon the waterfall, because this all comes back to the Himalayas, okay? The mountain ranges are over there. And if you get excess water, you get floods and you can't use it. And if you get too little water, you get droughts and you get famine. So the Chinese, like the Egyptians before them, were really good at creating canals and irrigation systems, aquifers and other things, to hold and spread out the excess water. So that they would have they would be able to save the excess water when it comes around, and when they needed water because of a bad rain year, they would have it. And so as a result, this area here flourished. It produced mad food, which allowed China to grow so quickly and have such large populations. Even today, one of the reasons why we see China with such a large population is because even back here, back during this time period, they were able to grow so many crops. Okay? So, those are the Tang Dynasty. Do you have a quick question that's relevant, or can I finish? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
No. I don't know if it's a question, but kind of not a question.
I'll definitely take that as a no. I'm gonna keep going, you can ask me at the end. So hold on, don't forget. So the Song Dynasty picks up where the Tongs left off. They take this woodblock printing and they actually figure out how to do a movable woodblock printing. Okay? Which, you know, as opposed to kind of going like this, you kind of put it on a wire and you can print out multiple sheets of paper by aligning all the characters together. Okay? Very, very basic form of it. Okay? It becomes the basis of what we get to know as the printing press.
Okay.
All right? But a much more, you know, rudimentary form. The Songs learned how to use gunpowder in warfare, primarily through developing bombs.
So what they use gunpowder for back in the Tang Dynasty?
Fireworks.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Largely fireworks, okay? They had, you know, there's a few instances where there was proof that they had used it as a noise device during war, but the Songs actually did flaming arrows, they did a very basic form of a cannon, and they did bombs with gunpowder.
So was the Song Dynasty the first to use like gunpowder for like weapons?
Generally speaking, yes. That's, I mean, they're given credit for developing real military applications.
That also were the first one.
Okay. The guns haven't been developed yet.
Actually, yeah, you're right.
We got a long way to go.
This is mad. This is a long time.
We still have another 200 years before we get to guns. Okay? So, and then lastly, they developed the magnetic compass. Okay? So, all of these things led to a huge flourishing during this time period. Oh, and then lastly, during the Song Dynasty, they implemented something called the Civil Service Examination System. All right? Something you need to know. So the Civil Service Examination System is like an SAT. It's a national exam that if you want to get into a good job in the Chinese government, you have to take.
I need under wheels.
Okay? So they implemented a civil service examination system, huge test. The benefits of it are a couplefold. One, okay, it allows the government to attract the best and brightest into serving the government. So when we get back to our how to be an emperor, one of the things that you need to build out is a bureaucracy. A bureaucracy is just all of the different offices that run government, from filling potholes to the military to taxes to whatever. There's all different kinds of jobs in a bureaucracy. And so it allowed them to bring in some of the best and brightest. In addition, the civil service examination was a way out of Chinese feudalism. Because China too had a feudalistic society. If you applied for, wrote the test and did well, it didn't matter who you were, you could get out of the position in life that you were born into, the place that you were born into, and no matter how much money you have. And so, the Chinese Civil Service examination is one of those first examples where there's upward mobility, right? There's an opportunity for the average person, including a peasant farmer, to achieve more in their life.
So literally anyone could take it.
Anyone can take it.
So anyone can take it, and like no matter like where like your background is, like how you are like currently in China, if you scored well on it,
You would become a well-respected, well-paid official, bureaucrat. Okay. Now you had to pay a fee to take it.
well, yeah, that's
And so a lot of poor people didn't have it, but there are examples where entire villages saved up to sponsor one person in the village to go write. There's still a national examination today.
Yeah, isn't it
to
like
get into
impossible?
top universities. And you actually have this exact same thing where you'll see villages save up money, okay, to do it. remind me and I'll tell you about Singapore and their use of the civil service examination today.
Singapore?
Singapore is a great example of someone who uses this
So
today.
like,
Don't they still have like the hardest test like ever
so is it
in
like
China?
teaching
What's it called?
or no?
Oh yeah, that's dangerous. Mr. Zhang, oh, I'm gonna ask Mr. Zhang about that. Oh, I'm about to check out his name. Huh? I'm gonna look it up. But it's like literally the hardest test in the world, bro. Mr. Zhang definitely took that test.